Simplify your federal agency's technology procurement with Connection Public Sector Solutions. Connection's dedicated account managers, commitment to exceptional customer service, and extensive catalog of federal contracts make IT purchases quick, easy, and affordable. Turn your challenges into opportunities and get rid of your technology pain points with Connection today. Learn more about what's possible with Connection Public Sector Solutions at connection.com/fedcontracts.
15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Oh, that's a cheer we used to do in softball.
What? It's, actually Geico's.
Whenever someone hit a triple, we would wave our bats and yell, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. But we never got to use it because we would only hit home runs. Annoying.
The phrase is from Geico because they help save people money.
Geico? Yeah, they were our team sponsor.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Grammarly Premium. Get a 1-month free trial of Grammarly Premium. All you need to do is click on the links down below, or you can visit my website for more information. Also, too, the show is sponsored by Amazon Music Unlimited. Get your free trial of Amazon Music Unlimited. All you need to do is visit my website to find out more.
Bugger. No, it's all right. The little red dot on the phone. I thought the battery was running down. It was just a little red dot saying that I got the speech stuck in. That's all. Okay.
Oh, God. Welcome to the Stephen Shiels radio show. I've got Patrick. How are ya? Happy New Year.
And a happy New Year to you, young Stephen.
It's good to have you back on the show. How was your Christmas and New Year's Eve?
Christmas, fairly pleasant. Had a tiny do with his nephew. New Year's Eve, nothing. Went to bed.
Nothing, so quiet.
Yes, hyper quiet.
You still volunteering for St. Vincent de Paul's?
Oh, very much so, yeah.
How's the shop been? Busy? Quiet?
A mixed bag.
Mm-hmm.
Some days remarkably busy, other days very quiet, and we cannot work out why. Some days people come, and it only takes 2 or 3 making big purchases, of course.
Yeah. So it's been pretty quiet as well.
Today was very quiet, but as I said over the last week, we've had some very good days.
No, that's good. Good on you for that.
Yeah.
You know. And so what? You're a mathematician, I remember. Did you study mathematics in university?
Very much so, yes. Did an honours degree in maths, and I have a couple of masters in maths.
Wow. And what type of mathematics did you learn in your...
I am in a very pure mathematics. I'm in a branch of my last study was in a very specialised branch of algebra called by-ordered set theory. There might be 100 people in the world who do it.
Wow.
So if you Google my name, with the word B-I-O-R-D-E-R-E-D, by-ordered, I will come up.
Hang on, I'm going to do it right now.
Patrick Jordan, by-ordered.
Hang on, how do I spell it? B?
B-I-O.
B-I-O, yeah.
R.
Hang on.
D-E-R-E-D, by-ordered.
B-I-O.
R.
Yeah.
D-E-R.
D-E-R.
E-D.
E-D. Let's see what comes up. By ordered set, the mathematical object.
That's what. Yep, that's it.
This is Wikipedia.
Yep. And you will then find that when you get to the Wikipedia,
yeah,
it will talk about where the name came from.
A mathematical object structure semigroup developed by K.S.S.
Namburipad, yes.
Of 2 quasi-orders by
Yeah.
Patrick Jordan. While
Yes.
a master student at University of Sydney introduced in 2002 the term Bow set as an abbreviation of
That's
by
right.
ordered set.
My one claim to fame.
So is your middle name Patrick Jordan, is it?
Yeah.
Oh dear, it's all... I mean, Wikipedia's not a peer-reviewed resource.
I know, but that entry is accurate.
But it's coming up here like all these preliminaries and formal...
Don't worry about that. They talk about pre-orders, etc., etc., etc. It is a very technical branch of mathematics.
Yeah.
And what happened was that it's the kind of area of mathematics that I'm interested in because in some ways it is simple. In some ways it's quite difficult. But because it's a very new area in mathematics, I didn't have to go away and learn billions of previous results. The other branches of related subject of algebra and mathematics, you need about 3 or 4 years study of the subject before you get into anything new. And when I was doing it, David Eastown, who was my supervisor, had done some groundbreaking work in this area. And basically what I did was I assembled all these results into a nice compact form.
Yeah, it looks very like vector space, formal definition.
Oh, yes. You need a background in mathematics to even read the Wikipedia article.
Preliminaries.
And if you go back to the general entry in the Google searches,
and
you might find a couple of articles have been published.
mathsucid.edu, is that...
Possibly that one, yeah. Possibly an article been published that my name kind of turns up as well in.
Oh, yeah, Patrick Jordan. Is your name Patrick Jordan, or is...
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I thought it was just Patrick.
Oh, come on. I mean, is your name only Stephen?
Nah. So you did this by ordered sets of fundamental semigroups with David Eastown and Brad Roberts. University of Sydney, 2006. You published this article, did you? Jesus Christ.
And that is one you don't want. I have trouble reading it myself now.
Oh, God. It's like you're coding.
And in some kind of way, you can think of it as something like that. Because what algebra is about, it is you have a few very, very simple rules, and you see, what can I do using only these simple rules? And a semigroup has a very, very simple rule indeed. Basically, that it behaves itself in a respectable kind of way. And what happens is that these structures, and basically it goes back to it's a branch of algebra that deals with in a way not describing, but talking about the way things behave. So according to this very simple rule, which is associativity, which is that if you and think of functions, if you take functions of functions, you kind of bracket them together and things like this. And it's quite a simple, as I said, it's very abstract branch of mathematics, but this particular sub-area was to do with a very specialised part of that area. There's quite a lot of work in semigroups, but bow-set theory is quite specialised.
Interesting. Very interesting. Nah, because I remember there was someone was doing their PhD on a bark, and they were going into all this complicated algebra as well.
Yeah. Yes, you see, bark. It's the same branch of algebra. But bark actually, you would use what's called group theory, which has one extra layer on it. Because bark is about what are called transformations, about the way things can be shuffled around, reorganised. And group theory was designed actually to handle that originally.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it was originally invented to handle a geometry problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so Bach can be analysed in terms of how do these things combine?
Mm-hmm.
How do these things combine together to make something new?
Mm.
Yes, I could understand Bach in terms of algebraic group theory.
Mm.
Interesting thought. I hadn't thought of that until you mentioned it.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because we did Roman numerals in music theory.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask you about the topic of algebra.
Yeah.
Do you need it to use it or not? Or is it just theories, or is it facts?
What I do is very, very abstract, very what they call pure mathematics.
Yeah.
However, for instance, what I did is related to the branch of mathematics they use in string theory.
Yeah.
When they describe the universe. That is actually, they use group theory. String theory is actually related to group theory. It's actually a branch of algebra. But what algebra is you have certain simple rules for combining things to make new things.
Mm.
Like, if you remember at school, maybe you're of the generation where we talked about the associative law and the distributive law and commutative. Remember that? Were they around in your time?
Yeah.
Right. That is algebraic arithmetic.
Yep.
That is the algebra behind arithmetic. Those rules. Algebra studies what happens when you have only those rules, and you have things not necessarily meaning numbers, but things that can be put together according to simple rules.
Mm-hmm.
And see, something else that can be, think of geometry.
Yep.
Most of the geometry you do at school is you do things to figures, to shapes. You slide them, you reflect them, you make them bigger, you make them smaller. And all of these things obey the same kind of rules. So instead of looking at the geometry, you look at the rules rather than and you say, where do these rules take me? And they take you down some very fascinating and fun places.
Mm.
It really is. Basically, it's a game.
Mm.
You have these rules. If I have these rules and I use only these rules, what can I say?
Mm.
In fact, they've reached the stage now where they can program computers to do new algebra.
Mm. I'm just looking on Google on Cambridge.org.
Yeah.
It's coming up with these by-ordered sets, subsets of independents of semigroups.
That's it. Yeah, that's the area. Yes.
Now, my question for you is, to be a mathematician, how do you become a mathematician? Do you have to have a mathematical brain, or?
I don't know how I became a mathematician.
Yeah.
I think you need to have an interest in. There are so many different types of mathematics.
Yeah.
And this is something I was particularly interested in with this kind of thing, because it was something that I could carry around the ideas in my head.
Mm.
And basically, mathematics, to be a mathematician, I think more than anything, you'd be able to need to see the underlying structure, the underlying patterns behind how things work.
Mm.
Instead of looking at the top level of the working, you're looking at the one level underneath.
Mm.
So it helps to be good at arithmetic, but you don't have to be.
Yeah.
Now, sure, to be a mathematician, you don't necessarily what you study at school. is all the preliminaries you need to study to be able to start doing mathematics. That's one of the troubles with doing maths at school, is that you never actually get anywhere doing anything near new.
Yeah, I used to fall asleep and draw pictures on my on my work.
Well, because it's like actually what most of you do at school. It is not going to directly affect you in life. I mean, when you leave school, it's useful to have a really good understanding of number and how numbers work. Because if you understand that, then a lot of what goes on around you, you can understand. That's me. I think the numeracy, being able to understand, it's like being able to read and understand what you.
Hike the trail? Check. Order takeout? Check. Schedule heart checkup? Done. We've all adapted to a new way of living. Keep your healthcare on schedule with Johns Hopkins Medicine, where your health and safety are our highest priorities. We're ready to care for you through virtual and in-person visits across Maryland and the greater Washington region. Your health, our experts, safely caring for you. Schedule your care now. Learn more at hopkinsmedicine.org/safe.
Read. But it's supposed to be able to read English. It's useful to be able to read numbers. Just as it's really valuable to be able to read a work of art. But there are all these type of things enable you to have a better life, to understand what's going on better. But after that, somewhere along the line, you just have to pick up the interest in doing it. Find that you can do it, and enjoy that particular kind of mental challenge. That's what it's about. It's about giving you. I do it because it gives me mental challenges. And I really don't know. I think that there are certain, whatever they might say, otherwise, certain, if not natural skills that you have somehow picked up from the earliest days. I think you need to have been exposed to this mathematical kind of thinking from the beginning in order for your mind, when you start meeting it, to be able to actually carry on and do it. So a lot of people get burnt out from instant mathematics by the time they're about 7 or 8. And I do mean like that, because after, when you think of all the really great sportsmen, most of them started quite young.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's a better example. I mean, not all sportsmen are the greatest athletes.
No.
You know, I mean, think about it, say, but they have somehow taken this particular challenge, this physical challenge, and they've developed their body to that extent. Well, to become a mathematician, the same thing. Somewhere along the line, something had to have caught your fancy and said, oh, this is interesting, and I'll do it. I mean, think about you and music. You're a fairly competent musician from what I pick up. I see in many ways you're certainly more competent than I am. And you certainly have more music theory than I do, although I have some I would probably have a better abstract theory of music.
Yeah.
I mean, I can actually give you the Pythagoras on music.
Yeah.
And I can actually work out most of the formal theory of music from first principles because it's mathematical.
It is.
But at the same time, when you did your music, you have gone down and developed the artistic talent. So you've developed your artistic abilities in music, and I developed mine. And I could say it's almost an artistic value in mathematics. I do it because I find it produces a product that I find interesting and in some ways beautiful. So in many ways, to me, it is an art as much as a science. You know, it's funny, there was one little problem I met when I was doing one of my degrees.
Yeah.
And it needled away in the back of my brain. And 10 years later, literally 10 years, I woke up in the middle of the night and said, oh, that's the answer.
Oh, you had one of those dreams and you got up.
Well, not quite a dream. I was actually consciously thinking, but it was late at night. But I was constantly thinking about it, and I suddenly had that insight. And I said, and this is, gee, I wish I'd thought about that at the time, because it was such a clean, such an elegant solution.
What's
really,
this?
I did something that was really heavy and clunky. And then another fellow in the same class took what I did and said, aha. And where I did something really heavy and clunky, he said, oh, let's turn it around. He had an insight that I didn't have. And he then did a very elegant solution to something that I had a clunky solution. But then what I did was I found 10 years later, it was gobsmacking, because it actually solved more than the problem I was trying to solve. It gave an absolute perfect answer to something that meant that a whole section of mathematics suddenly became absolutely presentable. And the thing is, other people have done it. So it wasn't new or anything, but it just struck me as being an absolutely wonderful result.
What's this? The construction for an arbitrary boset.
The construction of an arbitrary boset.
Yes. Oh, boset. I'm looking at... I'm reading your article now. It's got this weird stuff.
Yeah, well, the thing is, a boset is algebra. Let's get to what algebra is about. If you have a set of symbols you can write on the paper, usually they're letters, and you then have another set of symbols that you use to combine, another set of things, we call it multiplication, that you can combine those two letters, those two values, to create a new value. Algebra is, you have to have rules about how you can combine things. Now, the rules for an arbitrary boset are far from simple. They involve two, if I put the out, they involve two pre-orders over the idempotents, over idempotent values. And already I can see your mind saying, what is he talking about? What happens is that the rule says that if you have this any value and you square it, it stays the same. Now, in the numbers we know, there are only two idempotents, namely 1 and 0. But there are actually mathematical structures where everything is idempotent. Anyway, so you have structures where you have idempotents, and then if two idempotents multiply to make a third idempotent, and if one of those products is one of the two starting ones, then we are starting to talk about bosets. But after that, it gets quite complicated because I can't remember. There are a set of 5 axioms. One of the problems is that the way that I did it was that David Easdown, he used arrows to describe them, and he used arrows with pointy heads and rounded tails. And by using heads and tails on the arrows, you could say something rather than using symbols to show their relationship. And basically said two idempotents are related in a certain way, AB. If AB equals A, then if AB equals A, then BA and B are related in a particular way as well. Basically, as I said, it's complicated and very hard to describe without a blackboard and things like this.
The good old blackboard days with the chalk.
Well, you know what I mean. That's something to write on.
That's some good talent you got to be able to work that stuff out. Have you ever touched a bit on calculus?
Yes. Calculus was very big in the school curriculum.
Yeah.
And I also did quite a bit of calculus work in the earlier part of my university degree, because it was a kind of essential part of the course. However, I just remember I've just got another message I need to answer. I'm trying to do 3 things at once.
Three things
Got
at
you.
once.
Got you.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay. No. That's it. I've had a message about setting up a meeting, and it's because I was slightly confused. I thought I'd better get that one sorted.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, right. So, calculus. Yes. Again, I have some familiarity with calculus. I have read a little bit of calculus for fun. But calculus, again, a lot of calculus is procedural. It's about doing a lot of calculus is doing calculations. Particularly if we do it at school, a lot of calculus is about doing calculations or working things out rather than developing new theory, because calculus is a very mature science. When it goes back to Isaac Newton, literally, he and Leibniz, they're still fighting about which one of them actually developed it first.
Well, didn't Leonardo da Vinci use like a lot of mathematics in his art?
Yes, Leonardo da Vinci used mathematical thinking, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say to the extent to which he actually consciously used formal mathematics in developing his art, or because he was a brilliant mathematician, and Leonardo da Vinci was a brilliant mathematician, his mind, when he was doing his art, then tended to think in a structured mathematical way. I'm more inclined to believe the latter. Because his art is too creative to be just like, getting back to your early one, Bach.
Yeah.
See, Bach can be analysed mathematically, as you mentioned earlier, using algebra. But Bach wrote because it felt right, it sounded right. He might have had some conscious thinking about, I will follow this kind of pattern. But considering that the time when Bach was writing, the mathematics that would be used to analyse it had not been fully developed. He was not using the formal mathematics to do it. That's why mathematics is very often can be used to analyse things that already exist. When you think about it, most of nature is analysed and explained using mathematics. That's what science basically is, using mathematics to explain nature. Because, just like magazines, something like mingled in a big way. Right. just like messages. But because art kind of sits in a freer part of the mind, some art can be explained mathematically, and some not. But after all, when you think about it, when Bach composed worked on the World Tempered Clavier, he was using his basic constructional element was a 12th root of 2. He did not sit down and calculate the 12th root of 2. He he simply drew a straight line across the chords and said, aha, these give very good approximations to the true ratios of the true thing. So Bach, in fact, observed a very close approximation and worked with that. And that's how we have the whole current modern music theory. Because Bach had an artistic and simultaneously artistic and mathematical insight.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Bach because I think he lived during the Black Plague, did he?
I lose track of exact dates.
Leonardo da Vinci, I think, lived during the Black Plague
Well,
or the Black Death.
Bach was a hell of a lot later than that. Bach is quite a lot later. Bach lived in troubled times, but not those times.
Hike the trail? Check. Order takeout? Check. Schedule heart checkup? Done. We've all adapted to a new way of living. Keep your healthcare on schedule with Johns Hopkins Medicine, where your health and safety are our highest priorities. We're ready to care for you through virtual and in-person visits across Maryland and the greater Washington region. Your health, our experts, safely caring for you. Schedule your care now. Learn more at hopkinsmedicine.org/safe. Hike the trail? Check. Order takeout? Check. Schedule heart checkup? Done. We've all adapted to a new way of living. Keep your healthcare on schedule with Johns Hopkins Medicine, where your health and safety are our highest priorities. We're ready to care for you through virtual and in-person visits across Maryland and the greater Washington region. Your health, our experts, safely caring for you. Schedule your care now. Learn more at hopkinsmedicine.org/safe.
Alexander the Great lived during the Black Death.
Alexander the Great? Alexander the Great lived 300 BC.
Did he? Oh, wrong one.
Yeah.
Hang on. Gee, yes, Bach. It's one of those days, Patrick.
Yeah. I'm a little bit sloppy with my dates too, unfortunately. So,
yeah. Well, Bach died in... Wikipedia, he was born in 1685 and died in 1750.
Yes, 1685, 1750, the biggest outbreak of the plague finished around 1660.
Yeah.
Because the Great Fire of London
was
1666?
Yes.
Or thereabouts? 64, I can never exact. Don't quote me on that, but somewhere around there. In fact, did a lot to clean up the remnants of the plague. Apparently, because that burnt out all those vats and things.
Well, I was doing a course on the Great Courses Plus about the Great Fire of 1666, and apparently it started in a bakery.
Yeah, Pudding Lane.
That's really weird.
No, think about it. We're talking London, 1666.
Yeah.
Think of how the bakery would have been built. Think what a bakery has to have in those days to bake the bread. And think of what the buildings around it were built of. But don't forget the principal structural material at that time was wood. Buildings were mainly built out of wood.
Yep.
A lot of wattle and daub, which is clay slapped over thin wreaths of wood. But nevertheless, the structures were essentially wood. There was a lot of straw being used for insulation and underfoot protection and things. And a bakery is a place with a big fire. So, in fact, to me, I would have been surprised if it started much places else. Yeah, so at the Great Fire of London.
Wow.
However, Yes, so as I said, but getting back to the mathematics and music, I mean, the first person to really apply math to music was Pythagoras, who developed the whole concept of the interval as we know it.
Mm-hmm.
That goes back, and he basically, said, that we as Greeks in our music find that the music we like is where the frequencies are in simple ratios to each other. And again, it's one of these things that if you think hard about, what it means is that if they're in simple ratios to each other, they come back in step with each other eventually. So when you move from one to another, you're moving where the two notes if they are not in a simple ratio, then the one sound would jar against the next one in terms that would be an interference. So one note dying would actually physically interfere with. Anyway, I'm not sure about that. I'm just thinking aloud on that. But certainly he kind of invented that whole idea of interval as we understand it. And then Bach picked up and refined that idea with an artistic mathematical insight. There was both.
Yeah, so, well, Bach did used a lot of complicated mathematical concepts, I guess.
As I said, surprisingly not. It really was. Surprisingly, the biggest thing that he did was one brilliant, simple mathematical concept. I said the square root of 12, which sounds like a strange number, but nevertheless, basically said, hey, if I divide 12 even steps, which is the world tempering, as multiples of length, then by choosing the right ones of those, I can get very close approximations. And it was done by ear. He kind of, it's on these, you get very good at close approximations to the true intervals that Pythagoras described. So, as I said, the mathematics actually is quite simple, but surprisingly successful. As I said, it's in the name, the world tempering. Because he actually balanced them all out.
So, do you think he knew what he was doing mathematic-wise? And Leonardo da Vinci?
Certainly, Bach certainly was competent mathematically, yes. He certainly was thinking, as I said, he was thinking on that boundary between mathematics and art.
Yeah.
He was applying his mathematics to his art, or applying his art to his mathematics. I'm not sure which way around. Probably the first, applying mathematics to his art. But he was thinking as an artist, using mathematics rather than making art. To me, Bach is first and foremost an artist.
You see, Leonardo da Vinci was designing all these helicopters, right? Years and years before they got built.
Yes, they wouldn't have necessarily have worked.
Yep.
Because a couple of factors that weren't solved until the 20th century, a Russian by the name of Sikorsky had the great idea. Wrong button. I'm trying to multitask.
Oh God. So what you're saying, his inventions wouldn't work today?
They wouldn't have worked ever.
Wow. Interesting. Very interesting that, yeah. He was such a clever artist.
Oh, yeah, this is it. I mean, people try to... people... Right. He was an artist, but again, he was first of all as an artist.
Mm.
But he was in that classic meaning of the word, a Renaissance man. He thought about everything.
Mm.
And because there were no hard rules then about what you are supposed to study and what you were supposed to be doing, he tried everything.
Yeah.
And things like the helicopters, his idea of having screws thrusting through the air, and you look at his models, the idea was excellent, but the actual, the physics of the way, the amount of lift he could have obtained from what he was trying to do compared to the weight, things like this would have rendered them not as successful as people imagine. There are even little things like, I can't recall seeing whether he had a counter propeller to stop the whole thing spinning around. I was missing some of the necessary features to actually make it work. But at the same time, the very fact that he had the idea of creating an air screw is pretty blooming incredible in its own right. So I would give him a lot.
He was a genius.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's one of the... he's one of the genuinely genius-type geniuses. One of those genuinely, almost unbelievably, as I said, broadly gifted men. The other thing was that at the time, lots of things were being thought about from first principles. They're going back, things were starting again, people were starting to think again in a new way about the world, which meant there were no rules, pre-existing rules laid down about where the boundaries of your knowledge were, and also you're making it up, almost making it up. You're thinking your stuff was new, so he was able to look across so many different branches of study. Because see, nowadays, if you want to study engineering, for instance, and he was an engineer, all the engineering that Leonardo did in his life would probably be studied in no more than the first year of an engineering course nowadays. Seriously. And then, to make things work better and finer and finer, you would have to study more and more specialised, and you focus in closer and closer on a smaller and smaller area of study. You learn more and more about how one kind of thing works. Because what a modern engineer is trying to do isn't merely make something work, but make it work in the most efficient, the lightest, the cheapest, the strongest, the most efficient, or the whatever criteria you want's way. So think about motor cars. As I was growing up, it was expected that everybody was able to look under their bonnet and fix their engine.
Are you serious? You didn't rely on a mechanic?
Didn't have to.
So you could fix your own engine?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Not actually, well, actually I never got around to it. But yes, it was, and expected that as one of these skills, kind of expectations that didn't have a good thing. Because the cars were quite simple mechanical devices.
Yep.
But nowadays, courtesy of highly specialised knowledges, engine management is all done in a little black box. As I was growing up, it was all done by, things like engine type, if you don't think about that. It was done mechanically, and you had the cams were adjusted by twisting it by simply shifting a cog. It was done mechanically. And the timing of the ignition, again, was done mechanically. It was a very simple, very direct mechanical link. And with a physical link, it was visible and therefore adjustable. So nowadays, the controls for this are all in the black box.
Yeah, well, a lot of cars now are gone electronic.
Yeah.
So
I'm saying, yes.
Our mechanic reckons he's got 10 years left in the industry before it's all gone electronic.
Well, as I said, most cars nowadays, if you have a problem, they plug your box into their box, and it says, here's your problem.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
And that's happened between my last two cars. Nowadays, simple as that. And it simultaneously means it's less likely to go wrong, but if it does go wrong, actually in some ways easier to fix, in some ways harder to fix.
Well, you look at it like this, Patrick, you have a Ferrari. You can only go to a Ferrari dealer to fix it. You can only use Ferrari tyres and...
Yeah, well, that's another... Again, that's my early comment about how engineers work.
Yeah.
Because with the Ferrari, use Ferrari tyres, or their appropriate tyres, because those tyres can be relied on to behave in a certain way, have a certain amount of bounce, a certain amount of stiffness, a certain amount of flexion, so that the suspension of the Ferrari matches what the tyres are going to do, but they're part of the same balanced system. Again, when I was growing up, you just banged a pair of tyres on and the car went bumpity-bumpity-bump. Nowadays, cars don't go bumpity-bumpity-bump. Even those basic cars is smooth.
Well, you remember the old days of cars? I used to hear that they never had air conditioning.
What do you mean the old day cars?
Like the old Tiranas?
What do you mean the old Tiranas? The car I bought 20 years ago had air conditioning, yes.
Yeah.
But none of my first three cars had air conditioning.
Oh, God.
You had perfectly good way of making it cool. You rolled the window down.
Oh, man. What about on a 40-degree day?
Or the old pre-war Ford.
Oh, God.
This had a wonderful feature. In the middle of the dashboard, there was a lever. You pushed that lever forward, and it opened a scuttle in the bonnet that left blasted fresh air in straight in the middle of the car. So the hole in the bonnet straight into the body of the car, just in front of the windscreen, and this scooped air straight into the car. That was the height of modernity when it was made in 1937. That was a new feature. No. This is it. We forget just how much technology has changed in our lives. How much things that we now think of as fairly normal weren't.
Mm.
But, think of what I'm doing right now. Using microwave radio waves through a localized cellular tower structure using a code shifting frequency alteration to ensure privacy and talk to you.
Yeah.
After all, 20 years ago, if I wanted to make a phone call, it was a strictly analog system. I would pick up the phone, I would speak into the mouthpiece. That would be converted into a simple waveform, which would then be transmitted directly and unedited and unmediated down the wire.
Mm-hmm.
Totally different.
Mm.
And little things like that, when this works, because of the way it works with absolute clarity.
Mm-hmm.
So the system we are working now either works or it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, the way it is structured.
Mm. That's it.
Okay. Yep.
Like engineering, for instance, like you've got Lamborghini, Maserati.
You got all these fringe cars. They're fringe cars.
Yeah.
But let's not forget that the little hybrid iDrive now is probably, in every sense you can think of, a mechanically superior car to a Ferrari of 20 years ago.
What hybrid? You got a Toyota?
Yeah, the smallest Toyota.
Yeah, they're
but
good.
Nowadays you can buy an off-the-shelf ordinary car that would be, in all senses, mechanically superior to what were the fringe cars of 20, 30 years ago. I don't know if you ever watched the BBC Talk, the show Talk. Not Talk, what is it? Don't know. And people are be getting the supercar, the McLaren F2, of 20 years ago, and they're bombs.
Mm.
Now, they're clunky. They don't work.
They're like a million.
Not because they're worn out, because basically they were the best engineering of their time, and that engineering is now totally dated.
But to see the McLaren F1, it's like $1 million.
That is the current version of it. But the earlier, you get one of the first ones of them.
Yeah.
You get a car that costs. These cars don't hold their value, is the best way of putting it.
Yeah.
Because very often these cars are used to develop a technology that then just becomes part of every other car. Let's say it's almost everything.
Mm-hmm.
A technology is developed for a niche, it works, and it gets out into the world. You think about the brakes on the modern car.
Mm-hmm.
You think about the tyres, I would mention that. I can remember the first set of radial tyres I bought. You would never know what a tyre was. It wasn't radial. A crossbite tyre would mean nothing to you because they're simply just not made anymore.
Yeah.
But 40 years ago, they were the default tyre because they were easier to make. But over the time, they worked out that, hey, they worked better. How many cars nowadays have 4 drum brakes?
Not many.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, they're ABS brakes now.
You have ABS, yeah, and most cars will have at least discs on the front.
Hmm.
They'll have ABS. They'll have brake assist.
Hmm.
They'll have all sorts of things.
Hmm.
And a lot of these things were things found in ultra-expensive cars 30 years ago.
Hmm.
It just takes time to happen. I mean, you probably wouldn't even know that once upon a time, if you want to put the window down the car, you turn the handle.
Yeah. Now they've got the child-proof locker on them now.
Yes, but once upon a time, to roll the window down the car, you turn the knob.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you press a button. And things like this.
Mm.
I can remember, I think it was the... I remember when the Mercedes back in 1971 had central locking. I think it did. It certainly had automatic windows.
Mm.
That was 1971. It took a long time for when things like that to up in ordinary cars.
Mm.
Because, something is put onto a fancy car or put into a fancy system first. Mm. It works, and then they work out ways of making it cheaper.
Mm.
Which is really what I said, what engineers are spending all their time trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Engineers are always improving technology.
That's what engineering is trying to do. Yeah, that is why now, if you're way back to where we started on this, Leonardo da Vinci would have trouble now. Because engineers are now looking at improving particular, very narrow focus items rather than looking at big pictures. Mm. Leonardo was at the time in engineering was becoming a science because it always existed. There was always engineering. Mm. The Romans were great engineers. Mm-hmm. But a lot of engineering was practical. Mm. They knew what worked. Mm. So they kept on doing it. Mm-hmm. And every so often somebody would try something new. Mm-hmm. And around a little earlier than Leonardo, for instance, they suddenly worked out that they can hold roofs, hold walls up. Mm-hmm. Without necessarily holding the whole wall up, as it were. They'll cut down weight. Mm. And they suddenly did things like the flying buttons. They worked out that, hey, how loads were transferred. They worked out different ways of building arches and things. Mm. And all of a sudden, they're able to building twice as high. Mm. However, this was generally done practically, somebody experimenting.
Yeah.
Whereas the more modern engineer is more likely to develop a mathematical model and say, hey, the mathematics is right, now let's see whether it works in the real world rather than the other way around. Mm. Mm. So Leonardo would probably have trouble because his engineering, his view, was still the broad brush view. So his idea, getting back to the helicopter again, his idea of the helicopter was the idea of an air screw. Mm. However, it took a modern engineer to actually build an air screw that actually worked. Mm. See, small models, on big scale, people have made flying models. In fact, Da Vinci made small flying models. Little things that flew. Mm. Because, among other things, you want to have some form of energy. Because why you have to have a rubber, then have a spring or something wound up and have something under tension. Mm. And he didn't have very good elastics in those days. Mm. So things like this, all sorts of things like we forget that we have to remember that we have access to materials have been developed over thousands of years, but many of which have only been developed in the last 100 years, last 50 years, last 200 years. I mean, good quality rubber has only been around 160, 170 years. Things like that. We think of rubber as, but it took a couple of very clever men, or actually a bloke making accidental discoveries, often happens in these things, to make rubber actually usable. So things like this.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, NASA and the, what's the Russian space aid? Is that right? Russian?
I can't remember what I'm not sure what the Russian space agency is called.
I wanted to talk about this engineering with, the old space capsules. Now, did they ever have an ejection seat? Because what happens if something goes wrong? Can astronauts actually eject?
Most of them no, because they're too small.
So what happens if something goes wrong?
In some cases, the whole capsule would be ejected.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But NASA...
The capsule, the National Space Capsule,
yeah,
is the survival capsule.
Yeah.
It is the actual survival component. This is what kept them alive.
Yeah.
And the capsule...
Whether you're having a not moving off the couch while you watch the game kind of day, or a no time between conference calls kind of day, it can still be a delicious Dunkin' kind of day. And with Dunkin' now available on DoorDash, it's easier than ever to get your faves brought right to your door. So if you're looking for coffees, donuts, and breakfast sandwiches in the morning, craving some afternoon snack and bacon, or in need of Dunkin' refreshers for a PM pick-me-up, we've got you covered. Order now and get your faves brought to your door through Grubhub, Uber Eats, and DoorDash. Price and participation may vary. Exclusions apply. America runs on Dunkin'.
Hike the trail? Check. Order takeout? Check. Schedule heart checkup? Done. We've all adapted to a new way of living. Keep your healthcare on schedule with Johns Hopkins Medicine, where your health and safety are our highest priorities. We're ready to care for you through virtual and in-person visits across Maryland and the greater Washington region. Your health, our experts, safely caring for you. Schedule your care now. Learn more at hopkinsmedicine.org/safe.
Itself was the fail-safe. There were very few accidents involving space capsules as such. The more complicated things, like the Endeavour, the space shuttle, they are a much more complex structure. And they actually did fail more frequently. And they had a couple of disastrous space shuttle failures.
Well, there was one, I think it was in 2003. A space shuttle just blew up in the air.
There was one that blew up on launching.
Yeah.
And there was one that burned out on re-entry.
So how come? Because I think the Soviets were experimenting with ejection seats too, because they got the Soyuz.
Yeah, there were some efforts made, and I believe that some of the bigger units did have ejection seats. Because one of the troubles is, if you have an ejection seat, you have to have a hatch to get out of.
Yeah.
And once you build a hatch that you can eject through, you're building a weak spot. Into the thing that has to be particularly strong.
Yeah.
See, with an aircraft ejection seat,
they
just blow the roof off.
Yeah.
If you think about that, the first thing they do is blow the canopy off.
Yeah.
The aircraft, the bomber Australian with the F-111, didn't have ejection seats.
The F-111?
No. Oh. What happened was the entire cockpit was the safety capsule. The parachutes were attached to the cockpit.
Oh, wow.
So you say they landed the cockpit and all, apparently.
See, if a fighter pilot's going to eject...
Yeah.
Now, they never ever show footage of what happens, but I hear it's not very good for the human body.
Well, there are a couple of nasty things that happen.
Yeah.
Depending on the design of the sheet.
Mm.
First of all, you're given a hell of a kick up your tail.
Yep.
Because what happens is they've got to throw, you've got to be dashed well clear of the plane.
Mm.
Secondly, the moment you leave the plane, this plane's flying pretty fast.
Mm.
So you're hitting the face by a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, of the air you're flying through.
Mm.
So yes, it's not very pleasant.
Do fighter pilots actually get trained to use the ejection seat?
Oh, presumably yes. I mean, I've never actually had serious thought about that, but I would assume so, yes.
Because when
but the problem is that the actual ejection, as I said, when you're flying, is difficult to eject to take you on the ground anyway.
Mm.
Because things like the fact the plane is flying through the air at speed.
Yeah.
Not necessarily level, and things like this, and also then. So, but they certainly work.
Mm.
And in most cases, it is certainly preferable to the alternative, which is going down with the plane.
Well, in World War II and in World War One, they just used to get on the wing and jump out.
Oh yes, well I mean, don't forget that the most of the planes in World War One, those biplanes, were flying not much faster than 100 kilometres an hour.
Mm.
In fact, it's funny. I was just looking at the paper yesterday, online, and I took up one of these old photos from between the wars of two people standing on top of the wing of a plane.
Mm-hmm.
People walked along those wings. People actually walked along the wings of the planes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Crazy.
So it wasn't easy, but they did.
Crazy.
In fact, there are quite a lot. I mean, you had dancing girls on the wings of planes.
Mm-hmm. What, with no parachute?
Of course not. Well, they're dancing girls. That look like dancing girls.
So what happens if one falls off?
Get cheese. They were actually strapped on. They were actually tied on.
Oh.
But equally, the planes were, because of the way the planes are flying, in fact, they weren't flying very fast.
Yeah.
If you look at them, they have a lot of wing for the weight and size of the plane.
Mm.
That's why they're often biplanes.
Mm.
The size of those wings, there's a lot of wing.
Like World War One biplanes, pilots never wore oxygen. It was wasn't it World War Two? They were flying higher.
Oh yes, because those planes simply couldn't fly that high anyway.
Yeah.
Because to fly high enough to need oxygen.
Yeah.
First of all, let's not forget your engine also needs oxygen.
No, I didn't know that.
Think about it. The engine burns petrol.
Mm.
So the engine doesn't mean added oxygen, but it needs air.
Mm.
It needs enough air to keep the engine going.
Yeah.
So it was not until they started supercharging the engines were they able to, they're pumping air in, were they able to fly in the highly thin air.
Mm.
And then when they started getting into... But there were pilots who blacked out when they climbed too high for lack of oxygen, yes.
Mm.
Things like that. So again, you have to think... See, the thing is, you are... When you're thinking of the World War plane, you still think of things somehow like a modern plane. And the only way they're like a modern plane is that they flew.
Mm.
They flew slow. They didn't fly very high because they were flying slow.
Mm-hmm.
They flew high enough.
Mm. Mm.
So the idea of oxygen being needed wasn't... I mean, nowadays, the altitudes we fly at, we all need oxygen.
Mm. What about when the Vietnam War happened? They started having fighter jets.
Well, they had fighter jets long before that.
Yeah. See, I wanted to talk about, like, okay, say you're a pilot, you have to eject.
Mm-hmm.
Can it do like a lot of damage to your body?
Well, as I said, the first thing is that basically they explode a small bomb under you.
Yeah.
It's a little rocket booster they have under you.
Mm.
So you're subjected to 4, 5, 6, 7 G apparently.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Only for a very brief period of time.
Mm.
But basically you're just, as I said, you're given a mass kick up the tail.
Mm-hmm.
Because, don't forget, before anything else happens, the seat that you are sitting on has to be clear of the aircraft.
Yeah.
And when you're flying along, directly behind you, there's this bloody great thing called the tail.
Yeah.
If you don't go high enough, there's every chance you're going to be cut in half by the tail.
Yeah. So that's why they invented it.
That's why they had to fire them clear, yes.
You see, like a space shuttle in the Columbia accident, how come space shuttles don't have an ejection? I don't know.
Because to have an ejection seat, you have to have a hatch.
Yeah.
And because there are... The space shuttle is actually a shirt sleeve environment.
Yeah.
The space shuttle was flown in the same way that a high-flying aircraft is flown.
Yeah.
The crew are actually in shirt sleeves.
Yeah.
Because they're in a controlled environment.
Mm.
The whole space shuttle is their capsule.
Well, what about...
And,
yeah.
And the point is, because of the speeds they were operating at, speed of these failures, certainly an ejection on launch is be worth doing. I think they were actually talking about ejection for launch failure.
Yeah.
Re-entry failure. Don't forget the reason why re-entry failure happened was this aircraft was travelling too fast and it burnt up. If you tried to eject from the thing at the speed it was travelling, the impact of the air on you when you left the shuttle, they were travelling at, 1,000 plus kilometres an hour.
Yeah.
Can you imagine having a wind like that hitting you?
Yeah.
And be squished.
Yeah.
So an ejection on re-entry probably wouldn't work. But I think at one stage they were certainly talking about an ejection. I know the Russians were talking about an ejection for failure at the launch phase.
Yeah.
But the launch phase is really the most dangerous because when you think about it, when that space shuttle was taking off, it was sitting on a couple of hundreds of tons of high explosive.
Sure.
Basically, think about it. What happens is you are sitting on a couple of hundred of high explosives, letting it off slowly.
Hmm. What about the Russian Soyuz?
Soyuz, it's the same kind of thing. All spacecraft have that similar issue.
See, the Russian Soyuz, when they land the Soyuz, they got to go to Kazakhstan to land that thing.
So the Russians had a different philosophy than the Americans.
Mm.
Tends to land hard and fast.
Yeah.
And because the Americans had access to a lot of ocean and a big navy, they splashed down. They had the shuttles or the capsules.
Yeah.
The shuttles actually landed on an airstrip. The base shuttles actually were an aircraft.
Yeah.
Of sorts. But when they landed capsules, the Americans had parachutes on to slow them down, but they let them hit water, which automatically is a brake. And then they have put out float, they float.
Yeah.
Which meant they could land quite hard.
Mm.
They could land, several hundred metres a second.
Mm.
The Russians, on the other hand, used bigger parachutes and went with a soft landing.
Yeah, but when the Soyuz lands, it's got like a shock absorber in it.
Exactly. Yeah, but they also had relatively slow landings.
Yeah, because they tend to parachute around the Earth atmosphere.
Yeah, they tend to use bigger parachutes. And see, one of the reasons why they did that was the Russians have a lot more dirt to play with.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, you get out to eastern Russia and you've got millions of square kilometres of empty ground.
Yep.
The United States is big, but they don't have those millions of square kilometres of empty ground.
Mm.
So the Russians have lots of room to play around with.
Mm.
I guess that's partly why they did it.
Mm. But see, you look at the Soyuz, it's so small and so cramped up, it takes like 3 hours to land that thing back to Earth.
All of these capsules are like this.
Well, the NASA capsule was...
The whole thing is the only large... the largest spacecraft was the shuttle.
Mm.
And it was big.
Yep.
The Apollo capsule, the Apollo, not the excursion one, but the Apollo capsules, were of a similar order of size to the Soyuz.
Mm.
The three men sat in shoulder touching shoulder.
Mm.
Because you make it small to present the smallest possible burn-up area on re-entry.
Mm.
If it's small, not as much air resistance, can get us hot.
Mm. Well, see, when the capsule's landing back to Earth, apparently it gets hot inside of that aircraft.
It would get hot inside, but not as hot as it could, because what they do is they have an outer shell that actually evaporates, that boils off.
Yeah.
They have what's called an ablation shell, and that actually burns off or boils off. And when something boils off like that, it takes a lot of the heat with it.
Mm.
It's a tile-type material that actually, as I said, actually burns off.
Mm.
Whereas with the space shuttle, it was a glider.
Mm.
So it came in and it actually had to slow down quite a lot before it hit the atmosphere.
Mm.
So it did not get nearly as hot, but it did get very hot. And that was why it burnt up. And when it landed fast. So it needed a very long runway to land on.
Yeah, because there's no brakes on a space shuttle.
Oh, it had air brakes.
But they always have to have a parachute.
Yeah, but they also had air brakes on it. They had a parachute with the air brakes. But even a lot of big aircraft had parachutes to brake them. Yeah. The U-2, I think, had a parachute brake. The Blackbird had a parachute brake.
You see, the U-2 spy plane, it takes off just so quick.
It was, it has to. It was designed. Again, it is basically a powered glider.
Yeah.
You look at its design, and it's designed to have quite a lot of lift for its weight, so it doesn't have to fly hyper fast.
But see,
it was not the fastest plane. It was far from the fastest plane around when it was flying.
The problem
that was its problem.
Yeah, with the U-2 spy plane is the pilot can't land it by himself. Has to have someone on the ground.
Oh yes, it needed because it had such a huge wingspan that once it started slowing down, those wings sagged.
Yeah.
So when it takes off, it had little dollies under the wingtips and things like that. Yes.
You know, but there was a pilot, I think, named Gary
Powell.
He got shot down from a
U-2, yeah.
Now, when you're flying so high on the edge of space, how the hell did he survive that?
He would have come down in the capsule, from memory.
Yeah. Oh, he didn't jump out and parachute?
I think that actually... But he might, if he did, that's U-2 pilots, like the Blackbird pilots, were effectively wearing spacesuits anyway.
Yeah.
They were wearing full pressurised steel suits anyhow. Because the planes you wouldn't pressurise these planes because they'd blow up. Because for various reasons, I mean the Blackbird actually leaked. It was flying at full speed. So these planes, with the speed, the altitude they were flying at, and all sorts of interesting design things. So he was effectively wearing a spacesuit. But from memory, the U-2 also had the capsule model. I'm not certain. But he was flying a hell of a long way up.
So who hit him? Was it the Russians? That...
The Russians, yeah. He was flying over the Soviet space, yes.
So how'd they hit him from that high?
They just had a very good anti-aircraft missile.
See,
and that was actually the end of the U-2 as a spy plane.
Oh, okay. See,
and that's why they went into what became the Oscar and then became the Blackbird, which was the first stealth plane. They then built the Blackbird, which was still holds the world's aircraft speed record.
See, these missiles...
It flew at a similar height, but twice as fast. And it flew faster than any missile chasing it could go.
See, these aircraft missiles. How do they follow a fighter jet around and around, and it just doesn't stop?
Right. To follow a fighter jet, most of them have an infrared detector on them.
Yep.
And follow the heat given out by the aircraft. And that's why, if you ever see the picture, one of the news shows on television, you'd have this plane taking off, throwing out sparklers from the back. I've seen that image. What these were heated particles, so that any heat-seeking missile wouldn't be able to identify the plane because of all the other heat floating around. So if you're flying a fighter jet, so these fighter jets are often equipped with heated chaff ejectors. The other one, you can be radar. Because once they've got a target, ping, 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 unless you've got a very stealth shaped plane, very low radar profile aircraft, your radar detection, but generally they use heat.
So how does a pilot, get away from this if it's just going to keep following?
Well, a couple of ways. As I said, one is you can eject heated material.
Yeah.
And that can confuse it.
Yeah.
And two, a plane can fly further than a missile.
Yeah. What about higher? Will the missile actually...
Oh, no. As I said, Gary Powers...
Yeah.
He was flying as high as planes were able to fly.
Yeah.
See, missiles don't worry about height because they're rocket-powered. But they do have a fairly finite flying time, so if you can fly long enough... But once a missile is locked onto you properly, then don't believe what you see on the TV. Well, most chances are you're gone.
There was
once they've locked onto you.
Yeah.
You have to be lucky to get away.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I wanted to say that because that's very clever engineering, the U-2 spy plane, Patrick, how that was built.
It was a beautiful plane.
Now, Gary Powell, when he got shot down, is it true he was interrogated?
Oh, thoroughly. I mean, there are all sorts of stories about it. And he became involved in a great story about a spy exchange and things.
Yeah.
I've got the book here somewhere. Which I've been to read for the last 6 months.
Do fighter pilots get interrogated?
Oh, yes. I mean, don't forget, he was effectively an enemy spy.
Yeah.
He wasn't flying a fighter plane, he was flying a reconnaissance plane.
Yeah.
He was taking photographs of them. You see, so he was really taking photographs of them. Nowadays, of course, they use satellites for the same purpose.
Drones.
Oh, no, for spy purposes, they use satellites.
Oh, okay.
Because there are a lot of them around, and they're quite a long way up.
Yeah. Now, it just amazes me, I still don't get it. Like, you get a U-2 spy plane flying on the edge of the and it gets hit. It's just, I don't get it.
As I said, the Soviets had a very good anti-aircraft missile system.
Yeah.
It would have been radar controlled, because the U-2 was a very large plane. And it was the last of the low-profile planes. Its replacement was the first of the stealth aircraft. It's a replacement for the Blackbird in 1957. In 1963 it came to flight. In fact, was a stealth plane. You know, radar could hardly see it. And it flew so damn fast, even if radar could see it, wouldn't know what it was anyway.
You see, the U-2 spy plane was painted in black.
Yeah.
Where's the U-2 spy plane come from? Is that American or?
It's American. Oh, very much an American plane. Yes.
Yeah.
It's out of the Skunk Works. Remember it? Yeah, it kind of flew out of several aircraft, several of the bases. Yeah, so it was just one of those. Actually, they were still flying U-2s around the world a few years ago.
Yeah.
They use them for weather work now. Because again, they have this fact of getting way up above the weather and seeing things that you can't see very easily from the ground. In fact, a U-2 landed in Australia in the last 10 years.
Wow. You know,
So,
like the U-2, do they have an ejection seat in
as
that?
I said, I think from memory, I think they actually had a protection, a capsule.
Yeah.
But I think from memory, I can't be certain that basically, as with the from memory, I can't be certain, don't quote me on this, as I said, but from memory, they had a capsule, and in fact, basically the entire cockpit was kind of cut off from the rest of the plane and was landed. So I can't be certain.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Also, the Americans came up with the stealth bomber as well.
Yeah, well, the stealth aircraft, as I said, after the U-2, and this was, and I'm now talking 50 years ago, long before we hear about the current stealth generation, they built a plane called the Blackbird.
Yeah, yeah.
And the Blackbird was painted black, simply because it got so hot that it had to radiate the heat away. And it actually was the first aircraft that were designed as a stealth fighter, as a stealth plane. It wasn't a fighter, it was, again, a reconnaissance plane. It was a plane whose job was taking photos. And it actually was, actually its predecessor, the so-called the Oscar, but they were the first aircraft specifically designed to be very low profile on radar, effectively stealth planes. But the idea of stealth aircraft has been around for a hell of a long time. The trouble is that when you make a plane with a very low stealth radar profile, it becomes much harder to fly. It's much harder to control it. And particularly at the kind of speed that you want for an ordinary fighter aircraft. So they didn't actually apply that same technology to fighter aircraft until, 20 years ago, when they started with when they went into the stealth aircraft. The B-2 and things.
Yep. That is so cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing engineering, that.
Yeah. As I said, when I think about the Blackbird, which was, I said, that's the stealth reconnaissance plane, which took over from the U-2, in a way, it was a fuel tank with engines. Because it burned so much fuel.
Well, the U-2, that just used to glide. It didn't use any fuel.
Oh, no, it used fuel. It had to use a lot of fuel. It burns a lot of fuel because it was flying very high.
Yeah.
But what it meant was that it had the capacity for gliding.
Yeah.
But it always flew. It had to fly because where it was flying, it needed to push through that very thin air to get the speed up. So it had to fly twice as fast as it would, and had to fly a lot faster than it would be gliding. But when it was landing, it could effectively glide, yes. But it could glide for kilometres, yes. But it was that kind of shape of an aircraft.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Very amazing.
Yeah.
And I wanted, like, going back to NASA, when Neil Armstrong, I think it was Buzz...
Aldrin, yeah.
And then there was a third one that went...
Michael Collins.
Yeah, he didn't go on the moon, he stayed back.
He was up there, he had to stay in the capsule, yes.
Now, they took that... what do they call that thing when they landed on the moon?
The Lunar Excursion Module, the LEM.
Yeah, they took like a moon car or something.
Not on that trip.
No?
No. On that trip, they just walked around.
Yeah, but you see a footage
There were, what, 4 or 5 moon landings.
Yeah.
5. And I don't know the exact number, but there were... And on one of those, they did take a small car, yes.
What do? Do they just leave the car on the moon and go?
Everything on the moon. There's a lot of junk on the moon.
They just dump it there and say, piss off.
Yeah. when they kind of left, when they left the moon for the first time, they left all their landing gear.
Wow.
You know, they only took the actual capsule.
How come they leave the landing gear there? They don't take it back to Earth?
Think about it. No, wait.
Yeah.
You need the landing gear when you land.
Yeah.
But you don't need the landing gear on the way back. So why burn all the fuel to lift it off the ground?
Well, plus that, they'd have to quarantine it because space has disease too.
Well, there aren't any diseases on the moon. If you think about it, there's not much in the way of the biology of the moon.
Yep.
Although, interestingly, they did put Aldrin, they did put the crew into quarantine when they arrived back.
Yep.
Which is really rather absurd, but the first thing they did was land them in the ocean anyway. And also, when they were on the moon, they were in their spacesuits completely.
Yep.
So they were never actually exposed to the moon's surface anyhow.
Yeah.
But when they took their spacesuits off, they were then exposed to the outside of their suits. But nevertheless, the whole capsule was dumped into the water. So it's all a little bit, a bit iffy.
What, so they just dumped the capsule?
Hike the trail? Check. Order takeout? Check. Schedule heart checkup? Done. We've all adapted to a new way of living. Keep your healthcare on schedule with Johns Hopkins Medicine, where your health and safety are our highest priorities. We're ready to care for you through virtual and in-person visits across Maryland and the greater Washington region. Your health, our experts, safely caring for you. Schedule your care now. Learn more at hopkinsmedicine.org/safe. Hike the trail? Check. Order takeout? Check. Schedule heart checkup? Done. We've all adapted to a new way of living. Keep your healthcare on schedule with Johns Hopkins Medicine, where your health and safety are our highest priorities. We're ready to care for you through virtual and in-person visits across Maryland and the greater Washington region. Your health, our experts, safely caring for you. Schedule your care now. Learn more at hopkinsmedicine.org/safe.
When they land, because the Americans landed in the water.
Yeah.
So when they landed, they flashed down the Pacific. And then they were picked up by one of the aircraft carriers.
Yeah.
And put into their isolation chamber, which looked like a bus. I can actually see it in my mind, a picture of the isolation chamber they were put into. It looked like a bus.
Yeah.
Where they had to stay for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, they still quarantine astronauts before and they go, and then after they come back.
Oh, they quarantine them before.
Yeah.
Because they don't want them sick on the flight.
Did they do that back in the moon landing?
Probably yes. They were not as much, but certainly. Well, the thing is, the moon landings were very short trips. I mean, they only wait for about a week.
Yep.
If you're going up to the space station, you're going up for months.
Yep.
You don't want somebody carrying a bug.
Oh, God, no.
Up into an enclosed environment like that. Could you imagine what a case of the trots could do in the space station?
Yeah.
So that's why they quarantined them before they got to the space station.
Yeah, and they have a reserve person too.
Oh, yeah.
Because Apollo 11, there was one astronaut, he got the measles, and I think
I'm not sure about that one. There were all sorts of side stories that I'm not familiar with.
Oh, there was a movie with Tom Hanks. There could be.
Yeah, that was Apollo 13.
And they always had like a reserve.
Yeah,
astronaut.
That was Apollo 13 when they had that story came around. Yeah, and things like that. Like I said, there are all sorts of. I mean, they certainly had reserve astronauts and things. Yes, because you might, although you are a highly coordinated person, drop something on your foot and break a toe.
Yeah.
You might meet somebody who's got cold and come down with a cold.
Yeah, even a mild cold.
Anything that could incapacitate you here would make life very miserable. Because one thing those astronaut crews had to be in those days in particular was peak fitness. It was physically hard work.
Well, there's no doctor in space. Don't they carry their own medical supplies as well?
Yeah, well, they carry medical supplies, but then again, medical supplies are carried lots of places.
Yeah, but you got no doctor, you're screwed. So that's why.
Well, if you did, as my young brother, you go down to Antarctica. If you go down to Antarctica, he was in summer. But if you go to Antarctica over winter, you are as far from supplies as you would be if you were in orbit.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that 100 years ago, you set sail around the globe. You could be, you sail across the Atlantic Ocean nowadays, Pacific Ocean nowadays. You are 3 or 4 or 5 days away from any kind of human contact.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays, if push came to shove, they could fly something. There are still places, just even on Earth, where you're a long way from any kind of contact.
Yeah, the middle of the Simpson Desert, you can be 600 kilometres away from the nearest hospital.
Yeah.
In the outback of Darwin and all that.
Yeah.
It's for miles, Patrick.
Yeah.
You know. But it's amazing. Like with NASA too, like they're always trying to improve from their last.
Well, again, this is what engineers are doing.
Yeah.
Engineers and scientists, because one of the basic tenets of engineering is nobody's perfect. Nothing's perfect.
No.
So what you do is you try to make things better. A little tweak here, a little tweak there. And sometimes it's only a little tweak, and sometimes somebody has a complete rethink. And sometimes it looks like something that's absolutely brand spanking new has been around forever. I mean, quite seriously, for the space shuttle, they were working on the engineering of the space shuttle in 1966.
Wow.
Well, I actually saw with my own eyes tests of models of space shuttles back in the late 1960s. Because it was being done in Canberra. But that whole idea with the so-called lifting body, the idea was already being tested then. But it still took a long time for it to be developed. They still were using the great big massive Apollo rockets the Saturn V's to lift the moon rockets. And they were bloody big engines.
Oh, yeah.
and the one they were testing last week are also bloody big engines.
No, it's interesting engineering.
Yeah.
There's always an art involved with it. I mean, now
there's also that. There is that. You do all the mathematics.
Yeah.
And then somewhere along the line, it has to feel right. There is that. For instance, with the Saturn engines, driving the Apollo the Apollo mission, the Saturn V's, it took them, just trial and error to make it work properly.
But see, you've got a company now called SpaceX with Elon Musk.
That's Elon Musk, Bob. Yeah.
Now he's made the capsule much bigger than the old NASA capsules.
He is putting people into suborbital at the moment.
Yeah.
He's throwing people up the edge of space. He has actually delivered up to the space shuttle, but yes, well, there are all sorts of models and sizes, but it's a trade-off. The bigger the load you're carrying, the hell of a lot bigger your launch machine has to be. It's something like 70-to-1 ratio. If for each ton of payload, you need 70 tons of rocket fuel. Remember? So if you make your shuttle a little bit bigger, your capsule a little bit bigger, your engines have to be that bit bigger.
Yeah.
Although actually, so a lot of what he is doing, but also engines have improved. The technology has improved again. And he's using next generation, he's using different fuels and things. So it's all very, very, as I said, I'm not au fait or up to speed on the Elon Musk and the SpaceX model.
No,
I don't actually look at it at all, so I really can't talk about it knowledgeably.
He's trying to get astronauts to Mars.
Oh, they're talking about it.
You reckon we'll get to Mars?
The trouble is that at the moment it's a one-way trip.
It's not return.
At the moment, because when you think about it, the whole issue is to take off from the moon is relatively easy. The moon is small, and so you are relatively light. Mars is a planet. To come back from Mars would probably take probably somewhere between half and 3/4 of the fuel that it would take to get there, which means to get there you need to quadruple the amount of stuff you need to take off from here in the first place. So almost certainly a Mars mission will be launched from space. Because most of the problem in taking off from Earth is that first 1,000 kilometres. So seriously, most of the problem getting to the moon is the first 1,000 kilometres. Because of the fact that you're lifting yourself and your fuel to get the next 1,000 kilometres.
Yeah. Look, Patrick, I hope we can get to Mars one day.
Yeah, I cannot see it in my lifetime.
Yeah. Like, NASA don't go to the moon anymore.
They are actually working on the rocketry to go back to the moon right now.
But how come they stopped?
One of the things is why we went to the moon in the first place. And partly it was a one in a nose for the Soviets. To prove that they could do it. It was an immense project, cost humongous amounts of money. And the amount of science was great, but really not necessarily comparable to the amount of money spent. And what happened was there was a shift in the nature of the Cold War and the relationship with the Soviet Union. And you had a shift in the people running the country in America. And they became more businesslike. They couldn't see as much profit in it. And because they couldn't see a profit in it, they stopped doing it.
Yep.
I think that's partly it.
Well, you look at Elon Musk. He's completely redesigned spacesuits that are quite easy to move in.
Well, his engineers have designed spacesuits, etc., etc.
Because apparently the old spacesuits, you can't move properly in them.
Oh, well, there have been multiple generations of spacesuits.
Yep.
And they were, again, designed for different purposes, depending entirely what purpose they were designed for. And again, the material science is the materials available at the time. You know, what they can make them out of.
Mm.
These kind of factors have to come into play.
Mm.
Because the main purpose of the spacesuit is to compress your body. So, in fact, the pressure suit that pilots wear would work quite well in space.
Mm.
But the problem is, work around the body, but still need to get an adequate and a good way of matching it up to your headgear and things like that.
Mm.
But think about diving outfits.
Yep.
I mean, you have the old dry suit with a helmet, and then somebody said, "Hey, do we need to do that? Why do we need to have the whole body in a container full of air when we only need to have the air going into the lungs?"
Mm.
So thinking like that. So spacesuits, but equally spacesuits are protected not only against vacuum, but also the fact that even in things like electromagnetic radiation, we have a very thick atmosphere. We have 100 kilometres of air,
Yep.
which stops the sun from burning us to a shrivel.
Yep.
So spacesuits also have to do things like protect us from the electromagnetic radiation, things like that. And they also need to provide some mechanical protection against their bumps and scrapes and things. So once again, it's not a trivial exercise.
Yes. It's just
anyway, as I said, I've never designed a spacesuit in my life.
You could do it mathematically. You probably could.
Yeah. I don't think it's more calculus than algebra.
No, it's just amazing engineering and mathematical equations going into it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So the whole thing is that the joints have to be supported. They have to be flexible and to provide the compression around the joints and the flexibility, things like that all become major issues.
So, when Neil Armstrong or even astronauts, when they get out of a space shuttle, how do they get out without actual, I don't know, oxygen dying out or something?
Well, they suit up, of course.
Yep.
And then they do have airlocks on them.
What's an airlock?
2 doors.
Yep.
You have a door.
Yep.
You have a small room, and you have another door.
Yep.
You close the outside door.
Yep.
You open the inside door. You close the inside door. You pump the air out of the inside door back into the shuttle or the capsule.
Yeah.
You reduce your pressure down to as much as you can, and then you open the outside door.
Yeah.
So there's always one door closed.
So yeah, they got to close one door after the other.
Yeah, they close one door, then open the other, yes.
So what happens if a space station or the capsule or Soyuz didn't have an airlock? What would happen?
Well, the Lunar Excursion modelled it. The LEM didn't.
Yeah.
So when they landed on the moon, they put their spacesuits on up in the capsule.
Yeah.
In the command module, as they called it.
Yeah.
And then boarded boarded the LEM and went down in that. And then when they landed on the moon, they just opened the door.
And that's it?
Yeah. Hello, moon. Again, one of the factors is weight.
Yeah.
Because they're only down there, for a time measured in hours.
Mm.
So basically, the species tend to be in their suits, for time measured in hours, not days or weeks.
Yeah. Because it was about a 3-day journey.
About 3 days there, 3 days back.
Yeah.
Several hours on the surface.
So they wouldn't have spent a long time on the moon.
But really, they landed. Mission Control, this is Tranquility Base. The Eagle has landed.
Mm.
Although the first thing after it was headed to the moon was engine stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Then they had to do certain checks about whether the thing was stable or not. So they hung around for an hour or so, I think, from memory.
Mm.
Then they opened the door and they wandered around for about an hour or so.
Mm.
Then they hopped back in, closed the door, pressed the button, and whoosh, back they went.
Do you ever think of the what if they never could press the button to leave the moon? Did NASA NASA ever prepare for the shit to happen? I
don't think there were any rescue plans from the moon.
That would have been very scary.
Yeah, well, they were right, but all space travel, all space rocketry was scary.
Yeah.
The scary thing, the actual landing and the taking off on the moon was fairly straightforward, comparatively.
Mm.
Because they were using small rockets, small motors, because on the moon you don't weigh much. You're only pushing mass, pushing weights. Of several hundred kilograms at the most, which means they can use small rockets. And small rockets are not safer than big ones. The dangerous times for these trips, as in Apollo 13, a tiny system failure on the aircraft, on the plant, throwing them out completely, or taking off when you're sitting on 100 tons of high explosive. It's a bit scary now when you think about it. You're sitting on a bloody great huge bomb and saying, please go off slowly.
Yeah.
And coming back when you are hitting atmosphere going damn fast, so if you come in the wrong angle, you're going to be cooked.
Yeah. See, I truly believe NASA should have prepared for the worst come to worst if that lunar module could not take off from the moon. They
probably did.
But they don't talk about that. See, there's a lot of things...
Of course they don't. They don't talk about that fact. And I don't know. I would make a small bet that those crew probably had some way of bumping themselves off. I wouldn't be certain. And it would not surprise me. Because we would not want to leave people. Because the trouble is there's no way they can mount a rescue expedition. Because the lead time, it takes a week for a rocket onto the launch pad anyway.
Yeah.
So by that time, I'm sorry. So, no, there was no possibility of a rescue.
No.
But, so, almost certainly, but they would never tell you what it was.
Yeah.
Because when you think all the alternatives, they're horrendous. There's no nice alternative.
Yeah.
They built it damn strong. They built it very, very simple. That's the other thing. When they went to the moon, they did not use the most modern machines they had available. They used older types of thinking. They used older models, older model thinking. because they knew it worked. But they didn't use the newest computers because the older ones worked, and they knew they worked.
Mm-hmm.
Things like this. And they had multiple failures. They had, a lot of things they had two of. Things like this. They were probably 99.99% sure they'd get back.
And they did.
And they did several times.
See, before they launched...
even the ones who weren't going to, even Apollo 13 got back.
Yeah. I think Apollo 13 had a mechanical error in space, got hit by an asteroid, and the whole
Something punctured something, yes.
Anyway, I was watching a documentary about the astronauts. They had to put their spacesuit on. They had to turn their whole aircraft off.
Basically, they kind of flew back in the command module rather than their capsule, their re-entry capsule, things like this. And they suddenly worked out, oh, we do have engines. We've got the engines on the excursion module to fly back with. Things like this. Something that hadn't been planned for happened. And some very, very quick thinking and some very, very clever lateral thinking worked out a way of getting them back.
Yeah.
So it really was quite a brilliant piece of thinking, quite a brilliant exercise in getting them back.
Yeah. So the trouble is with space, if you get in trouble, the manual's in Russian.
Well, at the moment, yes.
And so
the Russians kept on going up into space, and the Americans stopped.
They need to put a manual in English.
Well, there are translations, but there's a kind of translation that says "open box with carefulness."
No, it's quite interesting. Yeah, how they got back.
Yeah, that one was really quite and the film actually pretty much covered the story, what actually happened in terms of the science and the engineering pretty accurately, apparently. It really was just one of these quite wonderful exercises in seat of the pants flying. Oh, do we have a target? Oh, yes, it's called the Earth. Let's just point the aircraft home towards home and fly.
Like a video game, just point it.
Yeah, point it. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, the thing is, on the way back, they had a big target. Going to the moon, they had a much smaller target. Not because the moon is smaller, but because they had to actually land in a particular place to be sure they're going to adapt the safety of things. Coming back, all they had to do was get themselves roughly over Earth, and thereafter they knew how to land the space. They knew how to land the landing capsule once it got into orbit. So that was bread and butter.
Yeah, I wanted to mention about the capsule too, because if something malfunctioned in the capsule, there's no ejection seat.
Yeah, well that's it. But don't forget that once you are a couple of 100 kilometres above the ground, I don't think I'd want to eject.
Oh God, no.
Think about it. I mean, the highest parachute jump was what? 10, 15, 20 kilometres. It was done last year, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, on the edge of space.
Yeah, I think it's good. He was, and the amount of preparation he needed for that.
Yeah.
No. The point is, the capsules themselves are your safety gear.
They've got a heat shield on them.
Yeah, that's the ablation shield. That is the thing that actually burns off.
Oh, okay.
What happens is that is designed that as you come back, it actually heats up and it actually evaporates.
Yeah.
That red is actually coming off.
Yeah. See, NASA... Yeah.
And if you read your basic chemistry from school, boiling something off, the heat goes off in the steam.
Yeah.
The heat actually goes off with what has been burnt off.
So, Patrick, NASA apparently don't reuse a capsule. They
can't because they burn it off. It's been burnt off.
Well, what about a space shuttle or a Soyuz?
Well, no, the space shuttles are flown a lot slower.
Yeah.
If the space shuttle comes in at a narrow angle,
Mm.
the whole trick of the space shuttle is it has to be flying fast enough for that flying brick, they used to call it, to be able to get enough lift to fly, but not too fast for it to burn. But it was covered with ceramic tiles, which were a good insulator.
Mm.
They're just muslin tiles, not quite, but something similar.
What about a Soyuz? Do they reuse a Soyuz?
Quite possibly because they soft land them.
Mm.
But equally, I wouldn't know because I do know that there are quite a few of them floating around.
Mm.
I mean, there's one in the museum in Sydney, the Powerhouse Museum in Sydney. The Soyuz capsule is there. That's probably the one you're talking about. It's such a tiny little beast.
Oh God, I don't know how astronauts can sit in that thing.
Yeah, that's it. That was it. The Russians used slightly smaller rockets than they reckon.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, the Saturn V was the biggest rocket around.
Yeah.
It was the biggest, and then the Russians since then have got a lot bigger in their heavy-lift rockets. So the current generation capsules would be bigger.
Mm.
They would be roomier.
Mm.
But again, the same thing. With these units, you make them as small as you can because you're wasting less of your fuel, less of your work in lifting up what is effectively the car and carrying it with a payload.
Mm.
So you don't want the Soyuz, you don't want the capsule too big because if it was too big, you burn up all that much extra work to get back into space.
Mm.
So you make them small quite intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my understanding of it. I mean, if they can devise a different type of fuel source, or a different way of launching, then maybe that's actually what was happening with the space shuttle.
Mm.
But because the space shuttle was a freight truck.
Mm.
It was just bloody big.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, nah, Patrick, it was a really good show with you today.
Yeah.
Great to have you back on.
Okay, good to see you. Good to speak to you again.
Whether you're having a not moving off the couch while you watch the game kind of day, or a no time between conference calls kind of day, it can still be a delicious Dunkin' kind of day. And with Dunkin' now available on DoorDash, it's easier than ever to get your faves brought right to your door. So if you're looking for coffees, donuts, and breakfast sandwiches in the morning, craving some afternoon snack and bacon, or in need of Dunkin' refreshers for a PM pick-me-up, we've got you covered. Order now and get your faves brought to your door through Grubhub, Uber Eats, and DoorDash. Price and participation may vary. Exclusions apply. America runs on Dunkin'.
Hike the trail? Check. Order takeout? Check. Schedule heart checkup? Done. We've all adapted to a new way of living. Keep your healthcare on schedule with Johns Hopkins Medicine, where your health and safety are our highest priorities. We're ready to care for you through virtual and in-person visits across Maryland and the greater Washington region. Your health, our experts, safely caring for you. Schedule your care now. Learn more at hopkinsmedicine.org/safe.